haven't met before, I'm Sarah and I make YouTube videos. Today we are here in my house, on my couch, with my clean laundry, and we're just gonna do some laundry folding and just talk about life. So laundry is one of those mindless chores that I actually enjoy doing because, let's get started, because it kind of gives you a chance to do something with your hands, but at the same time you can kind of like let your mind wander. Do I need to not fold your underwear?
Really?
Is that a problem? So today we're going to be talking about something that I have a lot of experience with, which is mom burnout, and kind of how to try and avoid it by taking care of yourself and by being very intentional about the things and people that you allow into your life. So many of you probably know, if you've seen my video that I first uploaded when I came back to YouTube, I'll put it up here. I have been sick for a couple of years, and a lot of the reason for me getting sick in the first place was because I was completely burnt out, totally overstressed, and very, very just overwhelmed and did not have the ability to deal with everything that was going on. So I was actually talking to one of my friends about this the other day, and I was just kind of wondering, like, why are moms so stressed out today? And it seems like in previous generations, while their lives were stressful and hard, just like everybody's, they weren't having the same rates of like burnout and just depression and sickness. Like, I know so many moms who are just like, their bodies are just not handling all of the stress in their lives. And a lot of them have like anxiety or physical problems, and it's all kind of a result of this stressful life that we have these days. And what occurred to me is that as our kids have more pressure put on them every day, like to get good grades, to have lots of extracurricular activities, you're supposed to have like a really full schedule for your kids and let them do any sport that they want to, and all the clubs and all of that stuff. As their schedules get so packed, if you add that with the already overwhelming schedule of a mom, and for example, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I always joke that like I'm a stay-at-home mom, which means I'm never home because I'm just always getting stuff done. And I feel like all of the stress and pressure put on our kids to do all of those things and achieve such frankly ridiculous things then puts a lot of stress on us too, because not only do we have households to run, marriages to pour into, like a family system to maintain at home, but then we have shuttling our kids everywhere, schedules, daycare, after school programs, paying for all of these activities, and it just becomes a lot. So I feel like that's why, because I feel like if I think back to like previous generations, like you would not have, maybe your kid played baseball or maybe your kid was a soccer kid, but you would not have 2 sports per season and multiple kids doing multiple activities and like coding club and all of these things going on at once, and then be expected to do all of the home stuff too. Like, you and I know it's just impossible to keep up with that, and anyone who looks like they're keeping up with it is probably secretly having a hard time doing it. I think the whole movement in the last few years to simplify your life needs to start kind of like leaking over into your schedule at the same time, and your kids' schedule. It's really not even that good for them to be so overloaded with activities and expectations. Kids need time to be kids. Okay, so before I get into kind of like some of my tips or some of the things that I've done to try and like fix how burnt out I let myself get, what I want to say to all the moms is that it is not noble or heroic or cool or fashionable to neglect yourself. And I think that a lot of times we think that it is, and a lot of times we think that that's kind of part of our job, is to just come last on our priority list. And while it is good to be selfless and to be a servant for your family, that does not mean at the expense of your health. Because again, it's not even like that's how humans have been doing it forever. It's like our lifestyles have changed and we have to change too. So there are quite a few things that I have done and just kind of started to incorporate into my life over the last couple of years that have probably saved me. And I've even had doctors like tell me that like, oh yeah, like those self-care measures are the best thing that you've done for your health. Part of the theory or science behind things like mom burnout in general and illnesses that come from too much stress is that you have, it's gonna get a little sciencey, but that's kind of who I am. So you have two nervous system modes. One is called sympathetic, and I believe that one is the bad one. Well, bad. It has a function. And the other is called parasympathetic. And sympathetic is like your lizard brain mode or like your fight or flight mode. So your body is in survival mode. You have a whole bunch of like adrenaline and cortisol coursing through your body. And those things are in us for a reason. However, if we get stuck in that mode and we are always in fight or flight mode because we are exposed to so much chronic stress, that actually tends to like wear down the functions and the systems of our body that are needed for sleep, digestion, all of the basic functions that we need to stay healthy. The way that I've kind of had it put to me that makes it easiest to remember is that your goal in life, and we have so much chronic stress that we have to actually like have this at the forefront of our minds, your goal should be to stay in the parasympathetic nervous system more time than you're in the sympathetic. So being aware of how you feel, like, am I breathing really fast? Is my heart rate up right now for no reason? Do I need to take a few breaths? Do I need to chill out and relax? And that, you know, you can help get yourself over into that, like they call it the rest and digest mode. Because when you are in the fight or flight state as a result of chronic stress, the reason that they call it fight or flight is because your body thinks that it's fleeing from a saber-toothed tiger. So if you think about it that way, then all of the time that you are stressed, even if you don't realize it while it's happening, a lot of times if we're not purposefully thinking about how we're handling a situation or how we're feeling, we are stressed, just kind of always in the background. And if you think about it, that is your fight or flight state, and they call the other state rest and digest because that is the only state that you can do those things in. So if you are having, for example, like I was having, am still having, digestive issues that had just gotten really, really out of hand. Some people have sleep dysfunction. A lot of these things can come out of having like chronic stress situations and not being able to manage that well. I'm not a doctor, so don't mistake this for medical advice, but it's just kind of interesting when you know how things work and why stress is actually so bad for you. I actually heard one time, I think in a book, that whoever the author was saying that chronic stress is actually just as harmful to your health as if you were to eat fast food every day. So here are the things that I've kind of found to really help over the last couple of years. One, I think, would be not neglecting your health and being purposeful to make sure that you get to doctor's appointments and that you get to the dentist and that you don't let it go, you know, years and years between kind of like your maintenance appointments. Or if something is wrong, something doesn't feel right, like get blood testing or whatever it is your doctor thinks is necessary. Like, don't let things go, because in my experience, things just tend to get worse if you ignore them. So making sure that your health is a priority, because if you are a mom and you feel like you have this big responsibility to keep your family running and your household and your family fed and clothed and the bills paid, I can tell you that when you are bedridden for weeks on end because you are so sick that you cannot stand up, that is not a good position to be in when you have all of those responsibilities. So it's best to make sure that you don't get to that point in the first place. It can be hard if you have little kids and they need to be babysat while you have an appointment, but just plan those things ahead of time and make it happen, because it is that important. Another kind of thing that seems really small but actually makes a huge difference is to eat in quiet if you can. I don't want to say like try to eat away from your family, but if you have like little kids like I do who, you know, make it so that when you're trying to sit down and eat, it's like chaos is happening. Sometimes it's good to just maybe not eat at that time. Like, for example, if it's breakfast or lunch and you're not just all sitting down together, try to find times that are quiet and you can be by yourself and just get some of that quiet time to eat, because eating is supposed to be something that you do when you're relaxed, because again, you can't rest or digest when you're stressed out. So that's something, like, it's, like I said, it's really small, but it really helps. Like, I really take notice when I am able to have a chance to eat by myself in quiet. It's like, oh, this is so nice. Like, I don't feel like I'm just shoving food in my body and like getting on with my day. Another thing that I'm sure you've heard about before is any type of like meditation. It doesn't have to be like official, like structured, guided meditation from an app or like following all these rules or whatever, because I think that can be overwhelming sometimes. I actually had a doctor tell me, like, even if you just like listen to like a classical song and you say in the beginning, like you're gonna follow one instrument through the song, and the whole song you just sit there and you listen to just the piano or you listen to just the trumpet all through the whole song, that is the same for your brain as any other type of meditation. So the whole idea of meditation is just to be in the moment, because when you're in the moment, you can't be stressed, because stress comes from worrying about the future or kind of like carrying things from the past. And so when you're able to sit in that state for long enough, then your body can kind of revert into the nervous system function that is most healthy. So speaking of music, another thing I like to do, so I have a couple of nights a week that the kids are home with Taylor, my husband, and I'm out of the house. I teach dance one night and I take a Danish class another night. And I like to really utilize my time in the car. If you're a working mom and you have a commute, like, I envy that, because it's really nice to have time in the car that you're not being peppered with questions and, you know, have kids whining in the back. I'm hungry, you know, like all that stuff. So I really like to utilize my time, and I will either listen to an audiobook or a podcast, but sometimes my favorite thing is just to blast my music really, really loud, and I can listen to whatever music I want because there's no kids in the car, and I can yell and sing, and it's like super therapeutic. So I highly recommend that. Like, no one's gonna hear you, you know, it feels so nice to just like let loose and also like choose the music you want to listen to. It's just, there's something really significant about that for me for some reason. It just totally changes my mood. This next one is kind of along the lines of what I was just talking about, but it is to not lose sight of your hobbies or your interests or your passions. I think it's irresponsible of us to not allow ourselves to have those kinds of outlets and just those kinds of like exercises of our personality. I think that we really suffer when we don't allow ourselves to do those things. So like I said, for me, I teach dance. I like to learn languages. So right now I'm taking a Danish class. I like to do like DIY things and home things. So I'm doing some of that around the house. And, you know, I just like to make sure that I have always these things that I enjoy doing and that are kind of therapeutic and that give me this sense of like accomplishment. Because as especially like stay-at-home moms, we don't have a boss there to tell us, hey, you did good today, or to like give us a bonus because, you know, we executed blah, 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 whatever. And so it can be really discouraging because all we really get is negative feedback sometimes, like our kids are throwing a fit or whatever it is. Sometimes it's really hard to have that sense of like, okay, I'm doing something good. I'm not a terrible mom. So to have anything in your life that you can sort of give yourself an opportunity to have little victories, that's huge. That's actually really good for just like your psychological well-being. The next one is actually something you can do with your kids or your family, or you can do it by yourself, but it is basically just to make sure that you have time to get outside. It's really therapeutic to be outside. There have been a bunch of studies on what actually happens chemically in your body when you're out in nature, and it's all good things. If you think about it, humans used to live outside, and so it's pretty unnatural for us if we kind of have this life where we never go outside. So I have a really good friend that for probably almost a year, I would say, we went hiking, and most of the time we didn't have our kids. We'd go early in the morning on Saturdays, and that was like just huge for me. Like, it was so healing to just be able to get outside where it's not noisy and there's not chaos. It's just beautiful, and there's natural sounds like water and wind and stuff, and it's just really, it just feels so relaxing. There's no pressure on you. It's just a time that you can just let everything go and just like be. And I think as much time as you can schedule in like that, the better. The last two are probably my favorites. One of which is girl time, and just making sure that you have time to maintain your close friendships, make close friendships if you don't have them, if maybe you've moved recently or you're just coming out of like the funk of like having a newborn and you've been stuck in your house. Having close relationships, meaningful friendships is really important for our health too. You'll notice that you just feel so much better when you have friends that you can talk to, you can vent to, you can share moments with. Like, if your kids are friends, you can have a play date and you also have a friend to hang out with. That's like the best. But just making sure that you do not become isolated, because that's one thing that is really easy to do without even realizing it, and it's probably the most dangerous thing you can do for your health. And the last one that I'm going to talk about today is travel, if it's possible. So when Taylor and I were first married, we were not able to travel. We were working the whole, like, constantly. We had little kids, and we still kind of do. We didn't have the budget to be traveling all the time, but if you can, even if it's just a weekend away with your husband or with your girlfriends, or if it's just a day trip, whatever it is, like, traveling, having new experiences, and just getting to be in a different environment than your normal environment that might be overwhelming and stressful is really, really cool. And I don't even know how to explain the difference that it makes, but it really does make a difference. My sister and I have started a tradition in the last handful of years where we'll go on what we call a sister trip. It's about every summer. One time I think we did 2, but we usually do like a weekend trip. And we've gone to like Portland, which is like, in theory, a 2-hour drive from Seattle where I live. And we've gone to LA, which is where my brother lives. So just kind of like maybe a 3-day weekend kind of thing. Last year we actually went to Denmark and visited our cousins, which was very, very cool experience. So things like that, things that just can like take you out of your normal, you know, state where you're just kind of grinding and, you know, whatever it is, that can really change your mood for the better, and it can really kind of arm you to be more resilient to stress. So I hope that some of my tips have been helpful for you if you are a mom or just really any person who feels kind of burnt out. Like, life can just do that to you. Maybe it's your job, maybe you just have a stressful family dynamic or whatever it is. All of these things can really apply to everybody. So I hope that you got some helpful tips. I would love to know what you do, if you have any tips or special things that you do to kind of keep yourself healthy and sane. So my list might seem kind of overwhelming. It's a lot of information. There are a lot of things that I recommended, but this list was something that I built over the last 2 years, and these are things that have helped me, but I never just decided to do all of these things at once. It was kind of like I discovered these as I went, just kind of adding one here and there. So if you can even just take one thing away from this video and say, I'm gonna commit to doing this for myself for the next couple of weeks, make it a habit, whatever it is, that would be hugely helpful. Once you have one of those under your belt, you kind of start to come out of the fog and realize like, okay, it feels really nice to not feel like I'm struggling. And then you'll look for other ways to kind of incorporate these healthy habits into your life. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Hello, laundry test. Why would you do that? Oh. Ow. Oh. Oh, that really hurt. Wait, don't throw it to my hand, throw it here. because you hit my bone and it really hurt. My face was
Yeah,
not
no.
cute though. Hey!
You're supposed to just keep going like nothing happened.
Oh, I was too excited. What do you mean it was alright? I caught it. Oh, is it still going? You can cut it there, right?